Good evening. What's up? Hey, Mr. Waddy.
What's up, Dr. Cleveland?
What's happening? Listen, it's been a week. I don't know about you, but it's been a week. Listen, y'all, jump on, join us. We're going to talk a little bit about life, love, and relationships. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I don't even know how we got here. Like, how did we get here? I don't even know how we got here. Like,
How do we get where?
to this. We on a podcast talk about life, love, relationships. I think it came from some conversation
Yes, came for some conversations and conversations,
and
and then
conversation.
it evolved to this. Us, me being a guest on Lolita's Corner once a month for a couple months, and now we're here or we've done this segment 3 weeks in a row. I'm
Three
loving.
weeks in a row.
I'm
And the
having
weeks has
fun.
been popping. Like the people have, been getting it in. I see your Instagram is following us. I do believe, all that good stuff. So listen, we had a good time Saturday, right? Like we had an opportunity to take some inner city boys and really talk to them about life and the different things that they have going on. I think that is so great. What was your take on the weekend? I talked to some of the boys. They felt really, really impacted. They say that they really, 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 really enjoyed themselves. How about you?
Um, I had a great time. Um, the food was great.
Listen,
Uh,
those chicken and waffles was going on.
Food was great. I needed my fruit. The gentleman who was the rapper was super dope.
Mr. Taylor.
Taylor, like that record was super dope, positive, and it feels good to hear rap from a positive standpoint. And it was still urban, it was still hood, but it was positive.
It was.
It was just like, yo, I can listen to this. Um, I had a great session with the young men that I had in my session. We talked about moving off the block and how, it's multiple ways to move off the block. Moving off the block doesn't necessarily mean moving yourself physically, but just understanding from a mindset how to move yourself off the block.
Right.
So, and was able to actually pour some authentic moments from the young man, some transparent, honest, emotional moments in a short amount of time from the young men. Just them meeting me that first time and just being open and willing to disclose some of their opportunities. And well, it's dope because what I did was life graph, and I had them
Mm,
etch out a square and put a line through the graph. And the beginning of the line was the date, that the year that they were born, up until the current day, 2022.
okay.
And top was positive lines and bottom was negative lines. And so just to think throughout your life, like what are some positive things and what are some negative things that have happened in your life that has created situations for you to stay on the block, and how do we use these negatives to find solutions to come off the block. And so
That's good.
that was dope, just being able to pull that out of these young men that I have just met that morning, that day, in a matter of minutes. So yeah, that was
It
pretty dope.
lets it. You know what I found? It lets you know that there is a need.
Correct.
Those boys came hungry. They didn't know what to expect. They didn't know how it was going to turn out. And it was phenomenal. I was just so impressed by so many of the adult men that came out to support that event. The guy in the black chucks was really good.
See
But
him, but
he's the man in the black chucks.
yeah, I didn't get to really see what he did. I seen a recap
A
video, but
recap. Yeah.
I didn't really see
He
what he
was,
did.
yeah, he was really good. The music was relatable for them. They were able to have a good time. But I really enjoyed that self-image, identity, and how to have self-care. Like a lot of our boys don't have access to that self-care, and those donations Some of those boys were so glad to have cologne and all that good stuff. I was really excited. I was really excited. So you know that means now I'm gonna challenge y'all to come bigger and better next year.
So, you know what was pretty dope on the ride home? I had the opportunity to talk with, I want to say Malik so bad that is crazy, but with Ethan. And I asked Ethan what stood out, how did he enjoy it? And the one thing he talked about was just learning about self care from a different perspective. And I thought that was pretty dope, to have an impact on not me having that impact on him, but
Right,
bringing him to work for the day in a sort of sense and allowing him to engage and be around other young men and other men and actually allow them to facilitate and pour into him and come back and he actually took away something from it. So I thought that was pretty dope, just seeing it firsthand with my own child versus being a facilitator with other people's children.
right,
So, that was real dope for me, just being able to share that moment and that experience with them.
right. And that's what's up. I actually enjoyed it. It actually was my motivation today after hearing that children had lost their lives in Houston. My sincere condolences to that family and that community. But this gun violence, my, that is not the show, but it is definitely heartening.
No, it isn't the show. It's definitely heartening. And, I have a bunch of different stances on this. I believe in 2A, full support 2A all the way.
Okay.
Um, but I do believe that we do need gun laws in certain areas of being 2A members, But I really don't believe it doesn't matter how strict you make the laws. If a person wants to get their hands on anything, we've seen that that's possible. I'm not
True.
su- I'm not sure if I'm on the stance of really following these conspiracies about them trying to disarm us as citizens. And a part of me believes that in order to disarm us, we have to continue pushing fear into the people, which will drive the laws to push people to turn in or turn over their firearms. So um, I'm not sure what's going on. Either way, it's disturbing and sad.
It is. It is. It is. And people are losing their babies and their lives. And, we can march and we can talk. And I always say it gets down to politics. We're in the midst of some elections going on right now. Man, listen.
Big reason for things to happen currently, So, but
Yeah,
that's not for us to talk about. But we have to be informative and understand those things.
we do. And I charge anybody, we can talk all day long. We can march, but some of the local things that are happening as a community, I know many people don't even go to their local community meetings. So you don't even really know what's going on in the neighborhood. And then you're mad when it's a big grocery store coming up or something that is going on and happening. I know here in Chicago, there was a whole big community event this past weekend, and the mayor was there at a local Chicago public school talking about the state of South Shore. Now, these people act like they don't know, but they did not open up 41, which is Lakeshore Drive, all the way south to no 93rd, baby, and they're not discussing what they're going to do with it. How do you not know? How do you not get involved? Listen, it's a whole park over off of 83rd East. Did you know that?
Yeah,
With rock climbing, I did too.
yeah,
But we don't take our kids over there. Guess who's going to enjoy it? So I'm not going to go there tonight. But there are community events while you're doing social media and all that other stuff. Find out what's going on in your community because most of those things are, on social media.
and they bringing it, and as long as we don't utilize it,
That's
it's
it.
not going to be for us. And they're putting it
Facts.
there for a reason,
And
So
it's a disadvantage to yourself to not go and find out what's happening in your community.
again, we don't care about things until it affects us in a negative way. Majority of our collective, or a nice percentage of our collective, and a lot of our collective isn't open to trying and exploring new things in life. So
That's true.
and that's young, mid, and older.
That's
So
true. And I think all of it has a great impact on us mentally. So, we're gonna address a little bit of mental health for a moment. We have an awesome guest that is going to join us on the line, the good Dr. Raven Curling. How are you?
Ray,
I'm good. Hey, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
What's up? You looking good, girl.
Thank you.
Look at you. Thank you. Listen, y'all, this is the Dr. Raven. Raven, listen, you're joining us. We were just talking about the things that are happening in the community and how it's making an impact in the community and how some of it impacts us mentally. We were talking about, it's election time, right? And people are talking about things in the community, the gun violence, and just the trauma that it has on us. Sometimes we don't even realize the impact and the trauma that it can actually have on our lives. Do you have any feedback on that? Thanks for coming to rock with us too.
Of
Listen,
course,
we
no
honor,
problem.
we honor.
um, I think, I actually just had a conversation with some students about this. The fact that like trauma is embedded no matter where we are, right? Like no matter where you come from, no matter what your experience is, it has an effect. But the way that we address it is not universal. And so the way in which
True,
it plays out can be very detrimental at its worst. There are times where we think especially in the Black community, what you what how does it go? If it doesn't, it makes you stronger. Whatever you go through makes you stronger, right? And so sometimes we have that look at things, and so we don't address things head on, right? But then when it blows up, we're all kind of like lost or flabbergasted. And it's like at the end of the day, humans are impacted by what they go through, no matter little or small. And if we don't take accountability for that, just even in the form of support, sometimes the way that it impacts us becomes to a point of our own detriment, even if we're just the onlooker. So it's like the way we're looking at trauma now has to change at some point.
I like, I like, I like, I
Yeah.
like.
you like what you like it. I what you
I
like.
mean, I mean, what she's saying is true. The way we look at trauma um, has to change at some point. I don't think we are fully aware of the things that trauma brings. One, we got to start talking about it, being more open about it as a collective of people. We come from that. What happens in this house stays in this house model and era. So it's sort of like a suppression, you know, um,
Sort of.
or it is, it's a
It is.
suppression, and we have to become comfortable with whatever those challenges are. And a lot of times, our trauma is embarrassing for most people. The first stage of getting through it is accepting it, or recognizing it, accepting it, and then just really being open to have the conversation about it. And a lot of times we don't have those conversations. So guess what usually happens? Trauma continues. So yeah, I just feel like we ought to be more open, especially Black men have to be very open with talking about their traumatic experiences, because we're told to be so strong in everything that we do, so we hold on to it. But the truth is, the strength is in releasing it and having liberation and being able to talk about it.
And I think some people don't even really know what trauma is.
Again, being able to identify,
Yeah.
because some
Yeah.
things that we go through seems to be normal to us, and we accept it as such. And it's
Mm-hmm.
unfortunate that we can't recognize this as trauma, because you've seen it consistently in so many different lights, family, friends, social
Right.
media, right? Whether they're making fun of it or they're promoting, it's in so many lights, and it's just like, yo, we have to be able to recognize what is traumatic, and a lot of people can't do that because it's norm. It's so many norms these days.
And
So
we
yeah,
only tend to respond to certain types of trauma, not
That's
realizing that a lot of other responses are trauma too. So, like, now we know, or there's a lot of research out there that even points to like the fact, like, cancer is a form of your body suppressing, right, things that you've been through, especially certain types of cancer, and it responds to it in developing these cancer cells. So when people look at like all these different diseases and they say, oh, well, in the black community or in these community where it's very disproportionate, we have higher incidences of this though, because trauma is higher in those cases, right? Which then another conversation I just had, like genetically, we know that trauma can alter your DNA, right? So we talk about all these different pharmaceutical pieces, but literally two, I think it's 2 generations behind, DNA can be altered where your DNA, all your helixes are then changed because of the amount of trauma that has been passed on. So if
that's
you are
interesting.
missing, yeah, if
yes.
you are missing certain things, you're going to be more um susceptible to other diseases, which then you have this cycle all over again. Because if you got a black man that's trying to fight, or a black woman that's fighting this particular disease, right, then having to take care of a family, extended family, because our family is not one dimensional.
Come
You're
on.
working somewhere that is also not supportive of how or what you live like or what you need. All these impacts increase your stress, which then increase every dynamic in your life to be more impacted with things that allow you to not be a whole person. So then how are you showing up? You just increasing how much trauma you give and how much you get. So the cycle doesn't really get to be diminished as much as it increases, and that cycle continues and it passes on. So yeah, we think seeing someone shot is traumatic, and it is, but it's also traumatic seeing someone in front of you diminished to diabetes, when if they lived closer to a store that they could get real stuff like
Come on.
healthy, you know, vitamins and nutrients, this would be less of your reality. So it's so many different pieces that cause trauma, and we don't even see it because we are used to it, and it is also impressed upon us, and sometimes we create it. So then how do you escape
How do
something
you,
that is
right?
inevitable?
That's true. That's true. And when you mention passed down, that's when they get to talking about from generation to generation. We don't realize it, and many people in the church tell you all the time, sometimes those are considered generational curses because they're going from place to place and it's steady traveling, right? So then
Mm-hmm.
what happens when you get to the point and it stops with you?
And that's even in a sense that it's a curse, right? Because we look at curses as spiritual warfare.
And
But if
it's
it's
it's not always.
biological, right? But if it's biologically embedded, then what do? Well, who knows that, right? So even if you start your healing, right, for your bloodline through therapeutic services, it still has not completely diminished. It has to be carried on, which means that the acknowledgement, the understanding of it, it becomes a very invasive process that you have to be aware of, or try to want to be aware of, in order to even try to attack it.
That's true. It has to be a desire there to address it. It
Mm-hmm.
has to be, you don't want it anymore. So
Yep.
that goes to, Wadi, we were talking about, that's that personal development, part of that personal development to make those decisions.
Forever evolution.
Yes.
Forever.
And
It's continual.
we have to own that and believe that at no matter how old we are, our life is a forever evolution. It is a forever body of work. It is a forever moving forward. My granny 89, and she always say, I learned something today. I learned something from you. So, I just think we got to forever move forward and understand that no matter what is a forever evolution. And a lot of people get stuck in place, in time, in feelings, in emotion, in trauma. and they don't move forward to do the work.
True, true. Somebody said as a collective, they really
Love that
believe
word.
we don't know how to deal with trauma. We have been built to deal with it and move on. It's been passed through generations, even with slavery.
I just love the word collective these days.
That's your favorite word. You
It,
just
that
everything is collective.
that is my favorite word when I speak about black folk. And we have to understand that it is not an individual. There is a collective.
It's
And
true.
like I said this a couple of weeks, there's a reason we have to check boxes and everything because it all goes into a collective at some sort. But I don't want to get caught up on that tangent, but
It's okay. We know how you are about the boxes.
I
What's
love
your
that word.
nationality, male or female? All of that
What
play,
they
all
call
of that.
that? Don't get me going. No, we're not doing that. What's your nationality, male or
But we
female?
do. We
What are
say it
your
for the
pronouns?
we right, that part. Those pronouns. I, what I get? What is y'all take on those pronouns? What
We're not doing that tonight.
we not gonna do that? I'm just curious. I mean,
Love,
it's a
life, and
myriad.
relationships. My take on it is, so I had to sit in the training, right? Imagine sitting in the training with something that you just don't believe, and they're telling you that you can't leave out, and somebody has to, and you see other people in here uncomfortable with this training who don't believe in this new theory and model that they're pushing, and you have to have, and somebody had to be the one to lead the charge, and I got myself up and walked out. Yeah, it just, you're not gonna force me to say that I am a him, male, whatever it is. I don't even practice the thing. So you're not gonna force me to do that. You know what I'm are. You know what I am when you see me. I've been what I've been since I've come out of Sharon. A man, a male. And that's all I'm gonna ever be. So I don't think it's something that we should do. That's my personal stance on it. If you choose to be trans and that's what you are and we can't tell what you are, I mean, if you're choosing to be a woman, be a woman. If you're choosing to be a man, be a man. But I don't think we have to, publicly display what we define ourselves as by our sexuality. That's crazy to me, personally.
Ready to go. Oh man. Well, I
I'm
mean,
just
we just
saying, why do I
looking
have to display that?
Um, for various reasons, I
You know
will
what I
say
am.
I and I understand. So out of respect, I will do it for others, right? Like, cause what you decide, that's on you, and I'm okay with that. And I've had very extensive experience of work in
You
various
politically correct, yeah.
communities. Yes.
well, we
But
do.
what
We
I
tend
will
to
say,
typically we do.
but personally, so I have a colleague, and I will say like a mentor, who puts it in the space of like, I will leave for you to ask me, but I'm not going to post it, because if you want to have that like discourse, I would rather have it up front and knowing why we're having it. And I really never thought of it that way. I respected her point of view in there. But for me, I grew up, I will say this: I have always prided myself as a lady. That is something that was embedded, or there was specific training that was attached to that wording.
That's
When
true.
I
A
was
lady.
growing up, a lady, everybody can be a woman. You can always grow up, but not all women are ladies, was what was taught to me. And I am attached to that, and I respect those who are not. And so for me, because I feel really strong to femininity, like, um, I would want you to already know that. Like, I shouldn't have to display it. I shouldn't have to preface with it. Like, I want that to speak when you see me, when you
Come on.
interact with me.
Come
And
on. When
so,
I walk in the room. Oh,
yes,
okay. You
like,
got
as Maya
excited.
Angelou, like, every head should turn, right? Like, kind
That's
of
it.
that perspective. So that's kind of how I address that. But like, in times when it's asked, I will answer it. But I don't lead with that. I just don't feel like people. I see people as people, right? And however you want to present, then I respect you as that. But I when you come to me for whatever reason, I don't care what you do in your personal life.
in
That
your
has nothing to, that's
person.
your business. If you want to leave with that, I respect that, but I'm not going, I feel like I'm minimizing a person when that's all that I'm addressing. So that's just my personal
That's true. We do minimize
choice.
them. Because I might need you to go on and take care of this business. And what you do in your sexual might not have nothing to do with us getting this money together. I mean, we have to know where it is. But like you said when we were talking about politically correct, I can respect it. And what my personal thing, when you in my space, that's something different. But I'm definitely not going to disrespect anyone. I agree totally. And
You
huh,
go ahead.
and I was gonna say I get the lady because my grandmother taught that. Listen, a lady is prim and proper. When you walk in the room, the atmosphere should be able to change and shift.
Hmm. And you
But
just
it's we're in the workplace now, so many things are changing. Look at him whistling. He is too much. Go on, what you got to say? You boiling on the inside.
Nothing. I
So
just
listen, go ahead.
nothing. Go ahead.
So, Dr. Raven, we have you on here as Dr. Raven. Tell the people what you do, right? We
uh,
just,
okay.
listen, I hear you got it going on, girl. Listen, I hear you could run groups, individual, marriage. Listen, girl, and then you website famous. Like they can Google you. Have you Googled yourself?
I try not to, but I do know that I am Googleable.
Girl,
Googleable.
you are Googleable, honey, and you got it going on. Please tell the people what it is that you do.
So the doctor's is from the fact that I'm an IO psychologist. So I like to describe that as like business psychology. Some people minimize it to HR, but I'm really not heavy HR. I do not care about the business. I care about the people because businesses don't run without people. So if you take care of your people, your business will be taken care of. It's kind of like the ideology behind that. And I'm a mental health therapist, and I've been in higher education for over 12 years. So it's a bunch of stuff there.
Yeah, girl. I was like, let me find out Raven. What Raven been up to? I say, honey, listen, she helping everybody. She doctor and LCPC and LPC and all them initials. Black Girl Magic. Thank you for being on. Hello. So
Thank you.
when you mention HR, and I know you don't do the business side, so do you help businesses train them or something on how to
So I do
navigate?
like leadership coaching. I do the business side. It's just like when people think HR, right? They think, oh, I'm gonna make a report, right? Um, some training and development, but typically what comes up is like benefits or like I'm gonna make a report on somebody or I'm about to be fired. And for a large amount of time, historically, HR is looked at like HR protects the business. Like they're not really protecting the worker as much.
Talk about
Should, but they don't. Especially in your most like corporate spaces. I'm heavy, so IO stands for Industrial and Organizational Psychology. I'm heavy on the org side. So, like, if I'm doing benefits, I'm looking at what benefit packages would make a person want to work for you, right? That's really gonna make your salary be worth it because we know salary quotes are not what you take home, right?
it. True.
So that I look at it from that standpoint, like what is
Okay.
gonna make this worth it for the individual? What's gonna make them feel supported? Are they really going to align with your mission, values, all of those pieces? And so, like on that side, like I do corporate coaching, like leadership coaching, training and development, mission and design, and all
Okay.
of that, pretty
Oh, you
much.
just got it going on. Come on, sister. Listen, me and you might need a business show together. Come
Do it.
on.
Just let me know.
Listen to him talking about do it. He just want to do it. I just do it all. So look, now since we have you on here, we always talk life, love, and relationships.
Okay.
What's up with the trauma impact and the mental health and the whole healing when it comes to relationships? We had a few conversations over the last few months, right? and
Mm-hmm.
people were talking about everything from cheating to shy men to the men who don't want to ask for dates to the love languages. Lord, Mr. Waddy was on here telling people his love language is touch and all of this. He like
Hey,
he looking like, yeah, what you gonna say to that? Look at
transparent. It's an actual language.
it is. It is.
It is. Um. So what y'all want me to touch on?
Well, just what's your thought? I mean, a little feedback about it because we
um.
have been talking to the people about it. You know, we just chatting. Nothing deep.
I think I think it's a whole nother category when we talk about dating in the black community. And
Okay.
it could not be. Can y'all still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because I can't hear y'all no more. But I think it's a whole nother beast. But also, I ain't never been nothing but black, so maybe it is the same for other people. I don't know. But I know in our actual community, I think it can be hard because lately or more recent in times, men are and women are pitted against each other. We have that.
Mm,
Um, in addition to the fact of like even before you start dropping the nuances of like love language or how we communication, there's the idea that we're trained different, right? So people don't like to use the word trained, but the Bible
We
says that
are.
train a child up in the way that he should go, and when they get older they shall never depart their ways, right? And typically that's the same when it comes to dating. And what I mean by that, like if you have a young woman that is raised in a household that is trained or raised to treat a man a certain way, unless they rebel, they're typically going to go in that particular frame, right? But while we're raising young ladies and young men, right, we're not raised as compatible parts when it comes to relationships now.
Speak.
So I
Preach.
think there was a time when they were. Like if we go back to even like civil rights time, like the way that courting and dating happened, people were getting more of the same language. Now, there's a lot of interceptions into that. Child support, the breakdown of the family that was like super divisive when you get to the 80s that kind of changes some of those shifts in how we were raised. But universally or like generally speaking, they were more compatibly raised, right? So I was raised where, you be a guy's supposed to ask you out. A guy's supposed to do these things. But the guys that I'm growing up with weren't raised to ask women out, right? So
Speak.
how do they know
Preach.
to do it if and the person that they want to go out is expecting something that they're not even known that they have to do in that form, right? So
Teach.
then we get to be older and everything is we're especially with social media, everything is influenced by like, okay, my friend got this or my friend is doing this, but this is not my experience, right? But then you have somebody that is courting you or is trying to date you, and you think, hey, oh, he called me 10 times, he must like you. At the same time, he done called 10 other people the same amount of times he calling you, you're not his one focus, or vice versa. So, in the way in which we are raising our children, even if you're raising them to like date now or later, we're not raising compatible forces. And so, when you don't raise compatible forces, you can't reunite the black family because the black family doesn't know what it's supposed to look like anymore.
mm,
Man, heavy. And
mm.
I, what's wrong? I approve that 1000%. I don't say it the same way, but I came to that thought maybe 2 years ago. And the way I teach it or tell it, and I think we've had this conversation before, is there's certain standards which this also creates a double standard in relationships, and it creates a double standard between men and women, right? But young women are usually taught to save themselves, look for the knight in shining armor that's going to come and marry them. And whatever those morals and values are in between that line that I just stated, Young men don't have the same push or morals and values. We don't tell, for the most part, young men to save themselves. You're just as valuable as a young lady. Wait till you're married. We don't tell them. We tell young men, man, you the man if you do X, Y, and Z. You the man if you do this. And not understanding how that progressively plays out into a male's adulthood, right? So when a woman is looking for this young man, whether she veered off the road of saving herself to marriage and staying one way or not, she's still looking for this man to come be her knight in shining armor. And when he arrives at 27, 30, man, he done been through hell and hot water and everything that you can think of, and it's not what you're expecting. So if we raise and taught young men and women on the same standards, then when we get to that age, it should be something compatible there. Unfortunately, we don't. And we don't look at that. We don't look how progressively there are double standards. If a young lady is a promiscuous woman, I'm going to use that word. I do
Very good. Good term.
Yeah.
Good
If she's
term.
a promiscuous woman for her sexual behavior, then a man should be considered just as promiscuous for the same sexual behavior. It shouldn't be glorified as the man, and then she's diminished to being the garden tool.
Oh, you good tonight. Oh.
So until we address the double standards in relationships between men and women, what's good for a man should be good for a woman. What's good for a woman should be good for the man. That's just how I look at it. You can't say he's this and she's this, and no, we're gonna always have these issues. So you do have to have those standards from base, and base should be 13. At least the understanding when you start to liking someone, and teaching how to properly court, date, and potentially move into marriage with a young woman, and vice versa for a young woman for a man. Only people I know that do that is the nation.
We
I'm all right.
It's okay. We having conversation.
Yeah.
You agree that it needs to be taught to
That's
the
true.
kids at an age. It needs to be
Age appropriate.
age appropriate, and then it goes to the parent because you need to know what's age appropriate for your kid.
Correct. Because age appropriate for your kid may not be age appropriate for the next person's kid. That just comes down to a matter of understanding
Exactly.
dynamics of your child,
That's it.
But
Mm-hmm.
the
And
truth
it
is,
definitely needs to be talked about because some people are not talking about it age appropriate at all, and they
well,
definitely
age
need to talk about
appropriate is no longer even a word. There are too many blurred lines.
it is. But for your kid, you need to know what that conversation is because for me, I come from liberal parents. It was straight raw, no chaser. You understood and you knew from an early age. I tell people all the time, my father's birds and the bees speech, Lord have mercy. Oh, we can't talk about it. It's X-rated. But honey, listen, it'll blow your mind. You be like, ooh, daddy, really?
I gotta hear this one day.
Well, when we get off the line, I'll tell you what he said when we're not live. But but it opened my eyes, right? I was this
Hot dog.
16-year-old girl. Huh?
None.
But it opened my eyes because then I'm like, oh wow, really? He like, yeah, really. Don't so you do have to know when your child is ready. Sometimes it happens young, sometimes it don't. I have a friend now, a 13-year-old son, he think he's supposed to have a girlfriend. At 13, you don't even really have the emotional capacity to be talking about a girlfriend. So she, have to continue to encourage him that you don't have a girlfriend. You're not ready for a girlfriend. Do you know
Well,
what that even entails?
Understand the pressures of a young man,
True.
13, right? Going to school.
In this day and age.
And in this day and age, a lot of things are on the internet. Information is coming into the school way faster than it's ever came into the schools. Our kids are exposed to everything that you can think of under the sun.
Because they take a second ed in 5th grade now.
Which is crazy to me.
Crazy.
You said they're taking what?
sex
teaching.
ed. They teaching sex ed or sex health. They got different names for it. You know, they give them all these different names, but that's what it is.
So imagine the
It's
pressure
needed though.
it's needed because that's technically what the times are. But we've
But okay, let's pause on that though.
on what?
On that, that's where the times are. Because if we really want to be realistic about it, the
It's
times have
been
been
there.
there. It's been there. Like it's been there.
It's been there.
It's been there for years, decades. Like we just weren't, because sex is such a so taboo to talk about, right? And we not comfortable speaking about it in certain spaces. It's not appropriate. It wasn't brought up, but we know it existed. We know that that was happening. It was definitely happening when I was in fifth, sixth, seventh grade, and we
You
didn't
Oh,
have
it was
all the
happening.
technology.
Oh,
And I know
it was. Listen,
it
it
was
was happening.
happening.
I tell a story all the time.
And it wasn't like one, it wasn't like exceptions. This was on a large scale. But then it's kind of like how you cast a sinner and it's like, oh, we're not gonna talk about that sin today, but it actually still exists. Like that's what we did with it for so long. And then at some points, like there's a comment now that says the little girls are way worse than the little boys, and there's always that back and forth, but it depends on where you at, because some spaces the boys are worse than the little girls,
Yeah,
and sometimes they are both forces to be reckoned with. But it has existed for a long time, and a lot of it is because what we were talking about earlier, like we don't feel like we can address relationships until we talk about sex, but in the reality of it, you can address relationships long before
long
you
before.
touch sex, because there is, like, that's not what, even in the best relationship, right? Like we, even in therapy, we talk about the fact that like a healthy relationship has sex in it, but that's not what you're doing 90% of the time. There is other components of that. So
True.
when a child sees a family, like a working family, what we would consider healthy, there are other things you can speak to. So when you're training children on how these interactions go, they can start very early, so that when it kind of makes its way to that, it's not so abrupt and not just equated to sex.
I think that's the problem though. It is abrupt and
It
it
is.
is equated to sex, right? So when you talk about it being early, like you think of a lot of them think about relationships as just being sexual. So we've missed all the other components to what a relationship really is. So it's interesting. I still think, in my personal opinion, I think that sexuality is being pushed too early on our children. Some people think different, and that's cool. But I think if we're gonna have if we're gonna talk about things, proper relationship building are the things that we should be talking about, right? Not
Mm-hmm.
sex, not what a child's sexual preference is in second, third, fourth, fifth grade. How to build a relationship, because the relationship isn't just man and woman. And when most
Mm-hmm.
humans talk about relationships, you automatically think man and woman. But there are platonic, there are friendships, there are kinships, there are so many relationships to be talked about and how to properly nurture them. So I just think it's
Well,
too soon. That's just me.
I mean, I think in that portion it is too
It is
soon. But
right.
when we're talking about the formulation of like this particular social connection that humans are going to go through, it's never too soon to talk about it, because you see it right away.
Well,
So
again,
whether you're born to a mother and father, or whoever your makeup is, or even let's say one parent ain't there, whether it's because they was at work or they're not together, as a child that typically there are two people around,
man
right?
and
When
woman.
raising a kid. So the interaction within those two people, not the sexual interaction, just the social
That's the
interaction
social.
exists. So when you get to a point when that is now becoming more complex, and you are raising your boy and I'm raising my girl, they should be complementary raisings, so that no matter even if it is, let's if we're throwing sexuality into it, no matter what gender, that they are knowing that there is a respect that you have for your partner. There is a way in which you address people. There is a way in which you carry out a relationship that has romantic boundaries. So, like, what comes to mind, even when I think when you brought up like the Nation of Islam, and I get where you were going with that. And even though this is more of an or has been a more of an elitist idea, like we've had in our communities, especially when our communities were tight, right? Like not as infiltrated as they are now.
Right.
We had cotillions and botillions, right? When I was a little girl, I couldn't wait to do one. I didn't understand though what was being taught in them. And
Mm.
then I ended up realizing what that was. Like in our as black people, dance is almost as strong as sex historically, right? We have a way in which like the our art of dancing is our communication. You see couples do that. They teach you these in like this particular setting. A man knows how to address a woman and ask her for a dance. He knows where his hands belong. You know
Hmm.
what step to make. Like
That's it.
these, it's different things that we can introduce back into our systems that creates a more balanced and healthy interaction within our social relationships, which still doesn't mean that you don't teach about friendship and kinship because that's natural. It comes and you can expound on that. But when we come to like the fact of uniting and talking about dating, it's always gonna be it's always gonna be problematic if everybody got their own definition for dating.
That's the part. Now you're
Mhm.
talking about something I can talk about.
I
And
think
everybody's definition to dating is
It's not
different.
the same.
It's
Courting
not
is
the
not the
same.
same anymore. And it's for convenience. I don't care what nobody say. People change these definitions because it's convenient,
to do what you want.
to do what you want. And I'd rather you just,
Self-satisfying.
yeah, but tell me that. Don't bamboozle me though. Because
I,
that when you change the definition, even if you don't feel like you bamboozling me, whether you might be bamboozling yourself, but regardless of what it is, somebody or everybody is being bamboozled, and we are not on the same page, and it starts long before we get to that point. I don't care how many. It's kind of so it don't matter if you know what your love language is, because you can be telling the wrong person, and they could just be doing it just to get what they
Just
want, not because they care. So
that
like
part.
it's a question I always ask my couples, like, what is your like? Do you believe in lying by omission? Right? Because a lot of times when you get into these spaces, people have different definitions, and some people really do feel like omission is lying, and that's a make or break. But if you believe that lying by omission is a lie, and I don't, and we've never had that conversation, imagine how much disruption and like just catastrophe can happen in that space.
A lot. A lot. Somebody say that's good, Raven. People have their own agenda when dating and don't communicate it.
And you could ask all day long. Not all the time are people going to answer though,
That's
or
true.
respond truthfully.
That's true.
that means it goes both ways.
No, that's definite because you don't
That
always
means
ask either.
based on that statement, that means it goes both ways.
Always,
Always. That make
always.
yeah. It's definitely. It's not a respecter of person.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's not a respecter of person.
And I think sometimes people actually don't know either. So they can only answer the question based on what their knowledge of self is at that time. And we don't always give room for that because it's like I can personally say I probably don't give a lot of room for that because it's like if you're an adult you should know. That's just my
That's
automatic,
that's
right?
not true
But
though.
it's not, and that's why I'm being upfront, but
She
that's
she said
me.
her.
Like
No, no, no,
that's me.
no. Yeah, no, I'm not knocking what she's
And
saying for
so
Yeah.
herself. Go ahead.
but like you have to give space for that because not everybody I might know. That don't mean everybody I meet is gonna know. So then there also then that becomes complicated because then you got to be patient at the fact that I'm gonna be frustrated with the fact that you don't know what the hell you want. You think you do, but you don't. And then I got to be patient with myself because it's like you voice that or it shows like your intention and your action might not align, but they might still be genuine. And so
Mm-hmm.
then there's a lot of space that has to be given on both sides in order to make that movement, especially if you all don't have the compatibility foundation of what a relationship looks like. So then it's like we got to build this thing for us.
I think it's okay to be upfront and say you don't know. A lot of
Yeah,
people
but some people
fail.
don't know they don't know.
You're
Some
right.
people don't know some people don't know that
I
they
agree with
don't
that.
know.
I agree with that. I I agree with that. I think you come to that conclusion at some point as an adult when you know you done dated enough, and it's just like, yo, these things have not worked, right? I should know I don't want this. I don't want this. I don't want this. I might not know what I want, but if I've had multiple failed relationships, I should be able to say I know I don't want that at least. That's just me. That's just me.
So I get with that.
That's just
Lo,
me.
what you wait, Lo, what you about to say?
You,
I know I don't want that, that, and that. I might not know exactly what I want, but I know for sure I don't want that, I don't want that, and I don't want that.
I
I can
think
kill
past
you.
relationships can help you determine
To
along the
determine
way
what you
what
But
you
see,
don't want
that's
at least.
accept and
but
what you
that's
willing to not
tricky.
accept.
I think that's tricky because okay, I can say that, right? And I think I have hit this many times. You say especially with women. Like I don't want this, I don't want that, I don't want that, right? But you might get that in a better package, right? So I can say I don't want to date a man with kids. And every dude that I done dated who don't have kids might not have been a match. He might be on some other, right? But I can find a dude that has kids, and because he know what he don't want and he knows what he's been through, the way he treats me would probably could possibly be way better, right? Than
Then me
any of the
settling for
people.
the fact that he has a kid.
Exactly. And so
Yeah,
then you have to renegotiate what it is you think you didn't want because the packaging is different. So having a solidified thing, and that's why it's hard to talk about what you don't want based on certain attributes versus on who a person's character is. And that's
that's
where I
true
think
too.
we get lost in that a lot because we don't talk about character. We talk about what somebody got and what they don't got, whether it is material or not material, or what they have done and what they haven't done, versus on who that person is.
But
At
that's
the end of
dating.
the day,
I'm not saying that's no. I agree with you, but that is dating in 2022 right there. That is a clear, identified. That's how people date. People don't date based on what you just said, character. Think
oh,
about it.
okay.
Most people don't even pick their friends based on character.
I do.
You pick
I
your
always have.
great for you. But the truth is, most people don't pick their friends based on character. They pick their friends based on environment. We come from the same neighborhood. We come from the same block. We played on the same team. Picked our friends based on environment. So when we talk about character, a lot of people really don't know how to pick their partner from character. They pick that. You ask a person, what do you like about him? Or what do you like about her? I like her car or his car. I like the fact that he has this job. I like the way his beard looks on him. I like the clothes he wears.
Well, we might like the
That's,
beard. We might
that's not, but that's not him. I
right,
get it, but that's not him. When you think
right.
about it, you ask most people what they like about a person.
Exactly.
These are the things that they name. So right then and there, you're showing me that you don't know this person from a character. You like the potential of. A lot of us date the potential of a person, not the
So
person.
Now
this might
that
not be
that I'm with you on. They
I'm
do
with you
the
on that.
potential.
I think so. This is where I might be tying things together and it's going to be weird. But this is where trauma played well in my life. Because I have trust issues, I've always had to choose off character. And I had trust issues early on, not being able to trust certain people, right? So, and nothing like super traumatic, but my thing has always been this: if I can't trust you to be a certain type of person, to yourself, to the people who you know love you, I can't trust you to be a certain type of person to me. And so that made me look at character from a long, like all the time, because that I Like I have to be able to feel comfortable. I can't feel comfortable around somebody I don't trust. But I think it is, you make a good point at the point too. That's something we don't teach, at least not widespread, I don't think. I
No,
think some of us might have had different experiences that have, but like that's one of those things that come in that compatibility piece. Like you need to be with somebody who has integrity, like
but
what that looks like.
but understand this. It's just like having a friend, right? And
Mm-hmm.
this friend talks to you about every other friend.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day, your business that you've only shared with that particular friend comes back to you from another friend. Did you
Mm-hmm.
really think that you were exempt?
Oh,
Mm.
people always do,
And
but
people
that.
think that they're exempt, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you're not exempt because and you are mad. You technically you cannot be mad. And this is why you can't be mad. You pick this person out of whatever environmental compatibility, friendship, whatever it was compatible, right? Out of environment. All along, they showed you who they were. So when your information came back to you, why are you shocked? You mean to tell me you didn't think about there's a possibility that your information will come back to you after hearing this person talk about everybody else? How can you be mad?
Because
I
they
would
thought that
even,
they were exempt.
and
You
people
never.
always do. And on top of that, you didn't hold them accountable. So you can accept somebody for who they are, but when they come to you with that, if you say, "Hey, like the best person uh, to to talk to this person about is them," you've already set that precedence that you don't really engage in that behavior.
And
So
they
if
have an
you hold,
issue with that too. Now you
yes,
think
but
you better. Now you think,
mhm, but you set,
listen.
but when you set a precedence and somebody
That's it.
crosses that, that's the only time you have really a right to be upset. But outside of that, I completely agree. But people always think they exempt.
I just think if we really taught ourselves, more so our children, or we were taught how to properly handle traditional relationships, as in friendships, kinships, right? We would really know how to handle a relationship, man and woman. So because the foundations, the morals, the values, all that is that goes across the board. That doesn't stop because I'm in this relationship. I'm gonna treat
Right.
this friend different. No, my morals, my value, my integrity, all that's across the board. And so if we're taking it, if we're not a certain way with our family, we're not a certain way with our friends, there's a good chance we're not gonna be a certain way with our mate.
That's very true.
That's true.
So I don't know. I think we need to just teach it. But again, you know what you said, and I agree with this. There is no foundational rule book. There are no standards, no primary standards that we all live by. There's no code that we live by. There's so many blurred lines that we all can make it up to be whatever we want it to be.
That's
That's
true.
why we are where we are with a lot of things at this current state of our collective, because we can pick and choose what we want to make comfortable for ourselves versus understanding the discipline that comes with having morals, values, and a foundation that's across the board that we all respect. If we're not all respecting the same thing, then guess what? We're bound to have a bunch of different things anyway. So family value is different, relationship
Even
values are
family
different,
values are definitely different.
but they
They
shouldn't be.
they shouldn't be. But
They
then here's
shouldn't
the
be. The
thing. You
foundation.
can still have family values, but situations, circumstances, and traumas come up and things shift.
So
Even
I
and
think
that's
that I was
Go
gonna say,
ahead.
I think some things are negotiable, right? Like you you can negotiate some things because I'm my person, you your person, there might be a difference, right? But if the standard ideal is a standard, it won't really deviate that much. But people take that to feel like they're boxed in, and it doesn't necessarily mean that.
imagine if Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King didn't have the I am speech, right? And they really played the second speech where he talked about economics and how he's possibly walked his people into burning fire. The problem is we look at that, what you just said, right? It's so open, right? It's so free, right? But we don't look at how this free piece may look 10 years from now, 20 years from now. We're so progressively wanting to push to be free. And then 20 years from now, it's a problem, right? Rap music, for say, I love hip, I love rap. But I'm gonna be honest and say it, and then a lot of people know I love it, but it's a detriment to who we are as a collective. And a lot of people don't want to say it. A lot of people don't want to agree with it. The truth is, if we would have knew what those politicians saying then and the reason why they wanted to slow it down so much, we probably wouldn't be in the space that we're in with a lot of things, because the music influences a lot of things. I know it's a different conversation, but the music influences a lot of things, right? And they were trying to slow it down. And I think that comes from understanding the progressiveness that they have from the civil rights in different eras, and understanding like, yo, even though we're being progressive and trying to have liberation for our people, everything doesn't just automatically work the way we think it's going to work because it seems to be a great idea. And so look at the music. The music, in my mind, has influenced two generations at least. And that's
You're
just
saying
one element.
mainstream music.
Mainstream music, yes. Mainstream. I mean, and the reason why I'm saying that, I seen a great clip yesterday on IG with Tank being so transparent and honest about the music business, right? And the clip talked about how in the 60s, Sam Cooke was able to write a love song that transcended through our collective, our households, and it brought the man and woman together. But if Tank decides to sing that same type of music in 2022, mainstream record labels would not play it because it goes against the agenda that they're pushing to separate. So if you really just listen to the music and how the music promotes nothing but negativity or sexuality when it comes to our music, you can't tell me that them saying, yo, let's slow this down in the early 80s wouldn't have been a benefit to us in 2022. Look at, like, I mean, really look at it. Our music is killing us, unfortunately. And that's just one piece. The influence, let me say it like this, the influence of our music is killing us, because the influence of our music is actually changing how we think. That's my personal opinion.
I
Come on, I
also
want to
think,
hear what
but
you got to say.
because a lot of that also has to do with choice and decisions, though, right? So, like, you have to choose to want that to be in your psyche. I'm not saying that it's not going to seep in, right? But we don't make conscious decisions. You don't always have to listen to that. But at the end of the day, like what you started off with, I felt very strong with, like the idea of freedom, right? And so people feel like they had a freedom to listen to whatever it is they want to. A lot of the music that you're talking about is necessary, is expression of what people have been through and what is wanting to be painted. I completely agree with Tank's space and what he presented, but this
Mm-hmm.
ain't new. It's not new. This has been happening. It's not gonna stop, unfortunately, like as far as that being a method of division. But
Mm-hmm.
what came to mind was there's this lyric from Most Def where he says freedom ain't free.
Freedom ain't free.
And that's where I think we get stuck. Like everything, especially as Black people, come at a cost, and you have to decide what that cost is sometimes. And sometimes that cost is not necessarily supporting things that are going to be divisive, no matter how catchy it is, right? So do I listen to trap music? I most definitely do. I do. I'm not gonna lie about it. And I listen to it in places where people probably would never think that I would. I find it comical. That's my sense of humor, right? But am I gonna be playing this around my kids? Is this like my mantra? Do I think about it every day? No, I don't. I don't. That's the truth. But are there people who mimic their lives after it? Yes. And are there people who don't hold people accountable for the spaces in which we actually blasted? Yes. So it depends on I think it's more of a conversation of how are we going to change the things in which are imposed on us versus the system, because the system is always going to be created for division. That's the point of it.
I think we have to first be able to recognize that the system is created for division. A lot of people don't understand that piece right there, right? A lot of people don't believe in that. A lot of people don't believe that they're in the matrix. A lot of people don't think that this is all systematic. A lot of people really believe that they're not programmed. A lot of people really believe that they're 1,100% just free will and not influenced by these different things.
But
I don't.
that's true, but it's also absolutely impossible.
I mean, depending on who that person is. I agree with you. I'm not here. I'm not disagreeing with
Right.
you.
It
I
just
agree
depends
with
on
you.
who the person is.
It depends on who the person is, because there are some people who really believe that they're not
Yeah.
influenced. And that's crazy to me to really think that you are at 1,000% of free will with no influence from nothing. How? How? You're influenced by movies, you're influenced by commercials, television programming. Like, you're influenced by all that. The
But
people
I think
next door to you, friends. Go ahead.
but I also think that that comes down to kind of like what we were saying about dating, right? Like, how do you define something? Like, free will is the central space. It's the environment in which you sit. When you make a decision, it's no longer free will. You just use it to exercise whichever way you decided to go. But we
I like
don't
that point.
you know what I'm saying? So, but it's the I still sometimes feel like all of this goes back to accountability and responsibility and facing what it is and where you sit, right? So you have to, whatever, even if you say yes, there's a reason, there's an influence why you go yes. There's a reason or an influence and why you go no.
I
There
agree.
is, you know, but I think it just makes us feel better to feel like the originators of our own destiny. And to an extent, you will always be. But there are still governing pieces within that.
Fact. Yes.
Fact.
Fact. Yes. I just kind of had this conversation earlier. So I do, like, it is
What
not
kind of
one.
conversation you had
It's
earlier?
just not one. It's not
I'm
one
not gonna
thousand.
mess with you. I'm not gonna mess with you.
It's just not
I'm
one
not gonna,
thousand percent free will as an individual may think. There are governing pieces, and there's going to always be governing pieces. I mean,
there's always gonna be governing pieces.
my point to it was, if you think you are as free as you claim to be, then let's not have a society with rules and see what happens.
Uh-oh. We're not gonna go there.
I'm just saying,
We're
think
gonna
about it.
leave it right there. But it's true. It's true.
Think about that. If we didn't have a society with rules, what would be? Everything would be free game
It'll be a mess, and it's already a mess with rules.
with rules. So
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
want to keep pushing progressiveness in forms that just does not benefit us, right? So we do need a standard. We need a in my mind, we need a leader, we need standards, and we need a book that allows. That's just me. I'm not saying that, yes, I am saying that we need a leader. We don't have a leader as a black person, as a black
We don't need
collective.
a leader. We don't need a
That's
leader.
fine. That's fine.
Why would you say we
And
need a leader? To lead
and,
us
and
where?
we need we need a standard. We don't have a standard that we live by, right? So that, because there has to be somebody that governs that, right? And you can't just say the people. There has to be somebody that governs that. I'm not saying a leader and a message is leading us into anything. And I get it. It's hard to pick that person. It really is. But we need to have our own collective, our own rules, our own everything that keeps us in line.
So
Us
this
as in who?
Us as our collective, black
Okay.
folk.
Okay.
So I will say this though. The reason why I don't say that we need a leader, maybe I would be open to saying leaders
Okay, that's
or
fine.
a
I'm cool with
group,
that.
but we are like people. like you and I may have commonalities, right? But what really may speak to you might not necessarily speak to me. So when people used to, again, a divisive trick of like separate Martin Luther King and Malcolm
Malcolm
X
X.
and like the rhetoric of like Marcus Garvey, the reality is we needed all of them, and we know that we need all of them because we use all of that
Yeah.
now, and it will
Right.
continually be used because they all have a purpose, and they have a purpose for very specific situations. Sometimes where one don't fit, the other one does, and I think that is where we really break down. Like we're not united. It's always one against the other when
The collective.
it can be like a group
Mhm.
or a multitude that has a common thread. The common thread is survival, thrival, love, and respect, right? And insert anything else there. But those are definitely some of the cores, right? And actually being accepted and seen for who it is we are, what our contributions are. And that is the main purpose. Whatever else and how you do it, right, might be different for certain people. You need certain types of approaches for certain types of situations. And I'm not going to really dig into that, but there is a
Yeah,
reason why you need that.
yeah,
Because you're going to be hit with every sort, you're going to be
that's
hit
it. And
financially, you're going
everybody
to be
don't
hit with
have
warfare.
right, and everybody do not have the same approach. Everybody's approach is different. When you think about it, all of us may say the same thing, but our approach to it may be different because, first of all, everybody, like you said, everybody is not going to listen to you versus me or versus if they're listening to Mr. Waddy. Is they're not going to be captivated because guess what? How they're thinking doesn't resonate with you and I, right? So
Hmm.
do have to be able, those approaches is definitely essential. I believe in approaches. I may not even reach a fifth or a third of a group of people to get to understand where I may think about community in the work that I do versus somebody else who's on the ground doing it from a whole nother perspective. Their approach to get it done is totally different. So when the two come together, it makes us more
It's
powerful.
strong. The purpose is
Makes
done,
us,
though. Like the
yes,
purpose is met.
exactly,
The way you
exactly.
do it might be different.
Y'all is hot tonight.
You can take
Listen,
that.
listen. I have enjoyed you guys tonight. Y'all been hot, baby. We done went from the East Coast to the West Coast, and all of that. Y'all was gonna get me caught up in that hip hop, but I said I better be quiet because I might get argumentative, and I don't want to be that tonight. I'm in a good mood now. Listen, Dr. Raven, we thank you for hopping on and joining tonight. You have some
Thank
hot
you.
comments. Somebody said civil rights was the best movement in their opinion, and somebody else said people can be selfish, can be very selfish, only concerned with getting what they want as opposed to fulfilling what their partner needs. Mm, We ain't comment. You not no. You not going to go there. You over your time. No. Listen, thanks for joining us. Listen, Waddy, it's always a pleasure. I guess we're gonna see when we coming back, right? We'll be
Yeah,
back
this
in June. We don't
is
know when in June.
number three. Yeah.
This is number 3. We
You
can
let me
yeah,
know. I'm here. I'm ready for it. I've
yes,
enjoyed these 3 consecutive weeks. Um, it's been fun.
it's been fun. We've had
It's
some good
been
topics.
fun.
You know, we've been doing us. This Waddy and Low. This what we do. Raven, I'm definitely glad you came on. Listen, I
Thank
may
y'all for
have some
having me.
clients for you. We may have to chit chat. But I definitely
Okay.
thank you guys for joining Low and Waddy for love, life, and relationships. Stay tuned. We are coming back. We're gonna let you know when. So keep up with us. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We up to something. We might need a Low and Waddy page, a love, life, and relationship or something. We may need to talk about that. Look at him. He's out of control. He's out of control. Listen, thank you guys. Send us your feedback. You can inbox us, email us at info@Chrome Enterprises. Let us know some topics. Let us know who you might want on the show. We down for it. We appreciate your love and support. Stay tuned because we are definitely coming back. Be sweet.
Right.